The Warriors of Kyoshi is the 4th episode of Avatar: The Last Airbender, Season 1, the greatest show of all time, at least in my opinion, and it has become almost a legendary episode throughout the years. The combination between stupid fun and serious themes and character development has immortalized this episode. That is why today I will explain why The Warriors of Kyoshi is a certified classic. But first, don't forget to like and subscribe, it would really help me out. Comment down below which episode I should cover next, but without further ado, let's get right into it. The opening scene of this episode does a great job at characterizing Zuko especially. Iroh walking in trying to give him some bad news and knowing he can't take it, but Zuko trying to act mature and believing himself to be mature. But yeah, he's just the angry kid we all know and love, but not really yet because it is only the 4th episode, so we haven't got too much time with him yet, so it's really important to hammer down his character this early on so we can see the character development he really goes on, since it is the biggest character arc in the whole show, so we need to know where he starts from to know how great it was or how big it was when he later evolves into a new person, this person he wants to be. But he's still this angry teenager, and it's just a great scene with a funny joke. The comparison with Aang later, how he says, oh, he's a master of evasion, and Aang is just, or the gang is just going, have no clue where they're going, they're just going straight at this point. It's just great joke as well. The scene after where the gang is just on Appa hanging out. I have spoken before on my other episodes, go check them out. I have done several episode breakdowns on season 1, but I have praised these gang just hanging out, either camping, here it's just on Appa, but getting to see them in a normal setting, not the mission, so to speak. And it's just, we get those Aang trying to impress Katara. It's just so relatable because I know every single one of you is trying to impress your crush and it just goes horribly wrong at some point. It's just so relatable, it's pretty funny, and also the pants scene or the pants interaction, pretty funny as well. It's just a great 2 opening scenes where we really get some good characterization from both Zuko and Iroh, but also the whole gang, and it's really needed this early on in the season. They later go down to the beach where we get our first little action set piece, and it's fine, I guess. It's nothing special in my opinion, although I noticed one thing, and that is the animation during these scenes are really strange compared to the other animation throughout the series. It feels really glossy and anime inspired in some way. It's just, especially when some scenes or some shots when he rides the fish, but also especially when he runs from the Unagi back to land. It's just weird since I can't recall seeing that anywhere else in the whole show. So why did they decide to do that? Did it just fail so they never came back to it? Was it a failed experiment? I'm not sure. It's just, looking back at it now with the whole show finished, it just feels so weird, just these few shots here. It doesn't really come back in the whole episode again, it's just in this action scene. I don't know if a different studio did it or whatever, but it's just really strange. If you haven't noticed it, go back and watch that scene. It's honestly really strange, and I don't know what happened there. Sokka is the main character of this episode and the main focus. It's maybe not his most important episode, but at least one of the most important episodes for him. His early negative traits, especially sexism, is dealt very fast, and that could have felt cheap, but the writers really attacked it head on and dealt with the consequences. Instead of sweeping under the rug, they brought up the problem and dealt with it. And that is in no small thanks to Suki, which is maybe a tiny bit bland in this one, but I do really like her as a supporting character. She feels like the popular girl who plays that role, at least in that first training scene, which really works to bring out the worst of Sokka, to show his biases. But she bounces off Sokka so well, especially in that second training scene when they're having that private training session, and feels so much better. The romance feels so natural, especially compared to Aang and Katara. Maybe the age difference, but I just preferred Sokka and Suki over Aang and Katara overall in the whole show. And as I said, I'm not the biggest fan of Aang and Katara, so yeah. Sokka is just more of a ladies' man too. The music just feels amazing in that private session. The strings being offbeat when Sokka does it first and then being in sync later. It's just a great addition. The great final line of Suki's is just iconic at this point, saying she's a warrior and a girl too. It's just great little message that the kids and adult can take away. It's really organic, and yeah, it works well to show Sokka's turn away from sexism without really trying to avoid the problem, but instead dealing with it head on, aggressively. And it was so important to get this out of the way. It really makes sense that he got the sexism from where he grew up. All the men went away to war early, and all the women stayed back, and he was the only man in the village now, and that really breathes stereotypes. So it's really important to show other sides of it, where the Kyoshi warriors is only female. It was a really great choice by the writers. Aang and Katara is kind of in the B-plot in this episode, and the arrogance and fame is in the focus. It's also important to get this out of the way. I felt like this episode really was needed, maybe not the best one, but it was just so necessary for both Aang and Sokka's character to get those bad traits out of the way early. It's a pretty normal like chosen trope or chosen stereotype, where like the chosen one gets arrogance over the fame, and we all seen deal with it. Like if you think Harry Potter, he got that little fame hungry in somebody trying to deal with it. So in all these stories where there is a chosen one, they have to like take back on the arrogance. So this is Avatar's way of doing that. It's not that interesting because it doesn't really feel like Aang too much when you rewatch it, especially since the journey he goes on. But it does make sense, especially considering the context of his crush to Katara. So it is not bad or weak in any way. It's just not the greatest. Maybe I feel like Sokka definitely takes the main stage in this one. One additional thing that is not character related, but when he lies in the water after getting thrown off the Unagi, after trying to show off to all the girls in Katara, he like lays dead in the water, and it just looks so fake and just so silly. It really drags the tension out of the whole scene. It just looks so goofy. The tongue out, he just lays there like, I'm dead. It's just, it really destroyed the whole suspension of belief, or the whole tension in the whole scene and the ending. When he did that, I feel like if he was genuinely hurt, or he looked like more brutal and less cartoonish, it would have felt more real, which they do later. I feel like this was also a little bit of a trial run in many ways. I said that about the early animation. I feel like this too, with the tone, they really perfected the way to balance humor and seriousness with the themes and characters later on in season 2 and season 3. So maybe this was just a little trial run how to fix everything, because I don't believe they really sucked the tension out this much again after this one. Not like a episode killer. It doesn't really kill the episode for me, but it's really distracting. When it comes to Katara, she doesn't get much to do really. She just gets to be like the serious one who wants to go away, and that is really important, and I'll come to that in a second. She doesn't really have any characterization that's really important. She does the mom thing, that she cares about Aang. That's one thing, I guess, but that isn't really developed. There's no arc here like there is with Sokka and Aang, but honestly that's totally fine. We have two really big things with both Sokka and Aang, so it's really not room enough for Katara to have a giant or a big part of this episode. But when it comes to the ending, like I teased a little bit before, I believe it should have been more somberly to say no Unagi saving at the end. It just feels so unearned, especially with the Avatar theme over it. And that is why I come back to Katara. Katara really makes this ending great if they take away the Unagi, since she wants to leave and Aang wants to stay. So when Zuko finally comes and burns down the village, it's really Aang's fault, since he, forced them to stay in a way. And the scene while Aang is flying over on his staff and just realizing what he's done is just a great scene, and I really wish we ended on that and did not give him any redemption. It would have been much more of a better lesson if the town was destroyed and the man or the chief kind of giving him acceptance or forgiveness by like waving or like nodding. I can't remember what he did, but he kind of gave them permission to leave, or like they were like, oh, it's fine, bye. Like, no, he should be furious because he said don't bring the war here, and they did. And I feel like it's such an on Aang since they stayed there for too long. So that is one wish I really had, that they did not have Unagi. It was not really any foreshadowing except like him trying to write it a few times. Like I don't feel like that was enough for this moment they try to build up, or they try to have with him showering the whole town in water. It's still pretty destroyed, so it feels so unearned in so many ways, and I really wish they just had the guts to end it on a really sad note, since that would have really taught Aang a valuable lesson. Overall, it's a pretty good episode in my opinion. Decent scenes when it comes to action. Riding the fish was fun but not too special. Although the short and sweet fight at the end was really good in my opinion. The Sokka, Suki, Aang versus Zuko in the town. Aang using the fans to blow him away. That is a really cool scene. The little fight piece. Love that. The fish scenes is whatever, honestly. When it comes to humor, it's not the funniest maybe, but it's pretty funny. The good amount of the jokes landed, for me at least. But where it shines is in the character arcs. Sokka and Aang both get really big character arcs where their negative traits really get resolved from this earlier, and it's really important. It's a really important episode for both of them, and that is what really lifts this episode to greatness status. Suki is also a great supporting character. She really does her job in this story, and there's a reason she comes back and later joins the gang at the end of season 3. The finale, unfortunately, is what drags this down for me. I just wish they had the confidence to end on that somber note instead of just undoing everything and a quick fix bandage on the whole problem with Unagi that just feels unearned and just not foreshadowed enough. If they want to go that way, the Avatar theme is not earned as well. It's just not the greatest ending in my opinion. It had the potential, but it just wasn't quite there. They overdid it in my opinion. My final thought is, despite its flaws, the Sokka and Suki scenes are incredible, in addition to some great themes with many hilarious jokes. Make this episode a classic episode in Avatar's huge catalog. Maybe not the greatest season 1 episodes, since the finale drags it down. If the finale was better, or if they just cut to Unagi, honestly I feel like this would be up there with The Storm or Blue Spirit. But honestly, it's in that next tier for me, along with something like The Fortune Teller and The Deserter. If you haven't watched my breakdowns on those 2 episodes yet, please do that right now. I believe there's some great points in there. Comment down below which episode I should do next. I'm trying to do the whole season 1 before I do season 2, so comment your favorite episodes and I'll try to get to that as soon as possible. Like and subscribe, that would really help me out. And yeah, until next time, have a great week.